So looks like we're running, maybe? Okay, so looks like now we're up and running. Okay, cool deal. Well, hello everybody. Happy New Year. It's now 2021. We all survived 2020. You know, the best year of all time. So pat yourselves on the back. We all made it. So that's a good thing. Alrighty, so there's actually quite a bit for us to talk about here today. I want to welcome you guys to the new time of the Saturday live streams on The Good Old Gamer. And we're doing 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. GMT for you guys over there in Europe. Because my wife's going to be going back to work. We normally record the Techonomic podcasts on Monday mornings. Can't do that anymore. So Paul and I just finished wrapping that up. And now I'm here to hang out with you guys. What's nice about this is Paul and I had, well, a 2-hour discussion about stuff. And there's quite a lot to talk about. So we're going to kind of spoil it a little bit. But if you're not already a member of the podcast, links are in the description below. You can sign up over there, subscribe over there. For you guys that are, YouTube was actually spamming you guys with ads. We're going to fix that. I went through, fixed all the other ones. Essentially, there's like an option where you can just leave ads on in the middle of the streams or the videos, and YouTube would just kind of put them in randomly. They did not do a good job. They were putting them in like every 2 minutes. It was ridiculous. So we're just going to manually do it from now on. Paul was actually unaware of how to do that, so I told him how to do that. So that is now fixed. But yeah, so how's everybody doing? Let's start off with the easy stuff. See how you guys are doing. Let's see. My LG CX comes in on Monday. You're gonna love that thing. It's crazy. I'm already thinking about buying another one because my living room, like 55-inch fits good, but there's a little more space there. So I'm thinking about getting a 65-inch, and we're gonna rearrange the basement down here. So I'm thinking I'll put the 55-inch along this wall, and we're looking at getting a new sofa and stuff too. So I'll bring the sofa from up there and bring that down here. So I'll have to rearrange all of this. The desk will be pushed up against the wall and rearranged a little bit. But yeah, so I'm thinking about getting another one. And let's see. So here we go. See how the rest of you guys are doing. Thoughts on RDNA3 MCM patent. It's hilarious because just talked about all this. It's pretty obvious that the MCM patent, this was coming. And it's probably going to be CDNA first. This is meant for data centers. It's going to take a long time for AMD to get the latencies down to where they need to be before they could really use that on like a consumer grade graphics card for actual graphics. So to me, it's not that big of a deal, the MCM patent coming out, because it's not really going to matter that much for us, not for a few years. Paul thinks it's going to be a little bit quicker. I think it's probably 3 or 4 years out before we get anything on our end. More likely, it'll just be for data center and computational workloads where the latency issue is not that big of a deal. They also have much larger RAM pools, which help mitigate that. So yeah, it's obviously a step in the right direction. We know NVIDIA is working on MCM. The upside is it will technically make GPU manufacturing cheaper once they can actually do it. But our price is actually going to go down, and I really don't think so. I'm pretty sure that both AMD and NVIDIA are going to be pretty happy with just milking higher margins. So that's kind of where I'm at. All right. Hey, what's up, man? People talking about 4000 series. And where I live, 1650 Supers are like 300. So yeah, let's get into the big thing. Still, people are trickling in. It's obviously a new time. We're up to 90 viewers. Normally, the channel gets up to 200, 300, somewhere in there. So let's, before I start jumping into like Q&As and that kind of stuff, let's talk about the big elephant in the room. So Brian over at Tech Yes City, he did a video. Somebody on Discord linked it to me here today, where he's putting up evidence that he believes that we're in the middle of another mining boom. And Paul and I talked about this just a little while ago because this very much seems to be the case. After we finished recording the Techonomics podcast, both of us just like jumped over onto eBay and we were checking out prices on GPUs, and everything is ridiculous. You have RX 570s, you know, the 4 gigabyte models. Those are about $120, $130 now. I was looking at the R9 290s. Those are actually still reasonable at about 80 or 90 bucks. However, the R9 390s, which are basically the same thing, those are now about $200. I've mentioned in a few videos, I've noticed the RTX 2060s are going for $400 plus. They are. In fact, we were actually looking at the newer cards, the 6800, 6800 XT, 3070, 3080, and for the most part, they're all at about $1,000 plus. If you want to actually pick one up on eBay, which means that's the real price. That means people are paying those prices for these things. So we're slowly getting to the point, we were joking, that the RTX 3090 actually isn't that bad of a deal. When the 3080 is like $1,200 and 6800s are like $1,000, well, 24 gigabytes and you can still get those around the MSRP price. It's actually not looking bad. But the whole thing is the used market, the secondhand market, was it even the RX 5700 XTs? Check those on Newegg. They're $500, $600, $700. All GPUs are going through the moon at this point in time. And what this really means to me is all the new stuff, like we're going to be hearing about RTX 3060s, they're going to be snatched up immediately. So things are going to get really, really bad this year. I was hoping things were going to get better, but all signs are pointing to this actually being worse than 2020 for graphics cards. I mean, if you think about it, the majority of 2020, you could actually buy a GPU whenever you wanted. You know, the 20 series and the RX 5000 series cards, they were pretty much readily available. This year, yeah, it looks like everything's getting snatched up. Like I said, even R9 390s are being bought up. And at this point in time, what are those, 6, 7 years old? And those are still hot commodities. So, yeah, if you have anything from Pascal, Polaris on up, anything that's newer, keep it. Do not sell it. I mean, even if you have another graphics card, let it sit on a shelf. These prices are going to continue to go up, and you'll be able to basically take advantage of the market when supply completely outstrips demand, and you could actually make a profit. According to Brian, he's saying all the above 4 gigabytes of VRAM are going to be the most valuable because the new hash rates on Ethereum or whatever basically max out 4 gig cards. So if you have a 6 or an 8 gigabyte or higher GPU, the value on those might actually double or triple before too long here. So this is getting pretty crazy, guys. Looking forward to the RTX 3650. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to be doing that. It'll just be the 3050. And as I've said before, I'm pretty sure the RTX 3050 will basically be like RTX 2060 level performance, about $200 MSRP. But like I just mentioned, MSRP has no bearing anymore, especially if another mining boom on top of the whole COVID thing, on top of all of these supply constraints that are going on, the shipping issues and all of that. I mean, nothing. There will be no sub $500 graphics cards. I don't think that, not until the very end of this year at the earliest. See, the problem is if you guys were around for both of the other mining booms, you could kind of see how it worked. There's the ramp up period, and that's where we're at now because not everybody's talking about it. It's not that big of a deal yet. It's obviously a thing, just looking at all the secondhand prices. It's very clear something is going on. It's not just, you know, gamers, more gamers out there wanting cards, because things like GTX 970s and stuff like that, which are now also about $150. Cards that I was getting for like 70, 80 bucks just a few months ago are now in basically double. They basically doubled in price. And that's outside the norm. That's outside of just supply and demand and people wanting to buy stuff. So there's definitely another factor going on here. And yeah, it's just looking pretty rough in my opinion. What a load of crap when we can't buy current hardware. Yeah, at this point in time, pretty much if you're buying hardware, you're basically anything that can run games at this point is going to be the thing. And Paul and I talk about this in more depth on the live stream, but this is where consoles are really going to shine. To be honest with you guys, this may kill off PC gaming, at least in the short term, because if anybody wants to get into PC gaming, or let's say your PC dies or your GPU dies, there's no point at all in buying one of these machines right now. It's just too expensive. CPUs have gone up. We've talked about that before. Luckily, it looks like Zen 2 supply has come back in. I saw, was it R5 3600s? Those are back down to about $200. So at least that's reasonable. Once I saw those at $280, I was like, get out of here. Freaking Ryzen 3600s at $280. That's crazy. But looks like supply on CPUs is finally getting back to normal. But they were pretty ridiculous there for a while as well. But GPUs right now, you can't buy a GPU. I mean, literally at this point, if you can play anything on your PC and you're happy with it, I don't care what the resolution is. I don't care what the frame rate is. Just count your lucky stars, because really the only other option that you have is console. Because those obviously can't be pulled into the mining sphere. You know, they're not going to pull off the APUs. If they could find a way to do it, they would. But I don't think that's going to really work. The other thing that we talked about was APUs are really kind of the only answer to this. This actually very much demonstrates why we need a strong APU market, just to alleviate these type of problems. Because if every couple of years mining goes up and down, just like, you know, the stock market goes up, it goes down. But if this is going to be reoccurring every few years, the mainstream gamer needs another option. Essentially like Xbox Series S level APU, something with 2024 RDNA3 CUs, 8-core, 16-thread, and that's more than enough for like 90+% of the gaming market. And this is also where things like DLSS or AI upscaling really come in handy, because yeah, maybe that's a 1080p GPU, but if you want higher resolution, you could use some sort of upscaling technique to get you there. So realistically, something like that would be a real option here to offset these type of issues. Let's see. I got an RX 580 early last year, and it's doubled in price. Yeah. I was buying stuff, like I said, $70, $75 shipped. So, you know, they either had free shipping or I talked them down to where, you know, that was the shipped price. Yeah, I got the 970 I picked up, I don't know, probably the middle of the year. I did a video on it back when I did the RX or GTX 970 was too good video. And yeah, like I said, 75, 70 bucks, something like that. They're $150 now, guys, on eBay. So that means people are paying these prices. And these are the bottom prices. I'm not talking about like the average. This is like how cheap that they're possibly going for. So yeah, it's just getting kind of crazy. Mining and crypto pump cycles are 2 to 4 years. Yep, it seems to be about right. The last one ended, the middle of 2017, I believe. Something like that. And the other one before that was like 2013, somewhere around there. Maybe it was the middle of 2018. But yeah, it seems like 2 to 4 years this seems to be happening. And like I said, if this becomes a cyclical thing and it just keeps coming back, there needs to be an alternative option. Basically, we need a different product other than graphics cards for gaming. And this is why I think it's just a huge open market for anybody who comes out with a decent APU. Something that you can buy. It's got your CPU, it's got your GPU. It doesn't need to be crazy powerful, but it has to be good enough. Basically, whatever the $200 or $300 graphics card's going to be for that generation, you need to put it on there. See, the problem here, and Paul and I were talking about this, is it's so disruptive to the graphics card market on like a normal cycle that I don't think anybody really wants to do that, except for maybe Intel. Intel would actually probably be in the best position to do this because they don't have a stake in the discrete graphics market right now. So it would kind of disrupt that market because you're basically killing off the sub $200-$300 GPU market entirely. And yeah, I mean, I don't think AMD or NVIDIA really want to do that, but we do need to buy under these conditions. So I don't know. All right, Subitech, thank you so much for the 5 spot. Big hello from Ireland. Hope you and the family are doing well. We're doing great, thank you. Grab yourself a beer with this. Absolutely. I actually got a fridge full. We didn't go as crazy on New Year's as we were originally anticipating. So I got some extras, but my brother's coming over today, which means most of that's going to be gone. All right, Nikola Gorgiev. I'm sorry if I butchered that. And we got a 10 spot over here. Here's a little something for a good start of the year. Thank you so much. Love the channel. Please keep exposing the BS. Absolutely. Been doing it since 2016, so we're going on 5 years. March will be the 5th anniversary of the channel, which is kind of nuts to think about in the tech community and gaming industry. Let's see. The community needs you greatly. Cheers. Thank you so much. Yeah, channels like mine actually just exist because of how bad the BS has gotten. And once again, it's kind of cyclical. You know, the mainstream tech media, they'll go through waves where they're pretty good, and then they'll just do something that gets really crazy. At this point in time, it's going to be really difficult for those guys to navigate, especially if prices of the, GPUs just skyrockets. Because it's going to be very difficult for anybody to recommend anything. So, all right, now we're up to 200 viewers. This is kind of normal-ish for the channel, even though we switched times. I actually want to ask you guys something, and I want to get your direct feedback on this. And that's, if gaming PCs, like what we were just talking about, become so out of reach for people, would you guys be interested in alternative solutions? For example, maybe like modded old consoles. Would that kind of content be interesting to you? Or something like Raspberry Pis or things like that. For me, I'm kind of interested to see what's available on something like a Pi, because those are only like $50. I want to see like what games and stuff have been ported over, how well they work and things like that. But is that content that you would be interested in? And you guys know that I'm pretty sure that ARM is going to be taking over gaming probably after this generation of consoles. So kind of getting a head start on the ARM gaming landscape and kind of seeing where that's at. Obviously, Raspberry Pi is not that powerful. But I was also going to look at maybe like the Jetson Nano. NVIDIA's got the 2 GB model out there, which isn't a lot of RAM, but it's got a much more powerful GPU. Maybe compare those. Those are about $60. But kind of interested in what you guys are thinking. Let's see. We got Arjun. He's like, I'd probably just buy a PS5. And that's another option. Like, would you guys switch to console? Let's say the cheapest GPU, so RTX 2060 level, let's say it's $500. So that's your entry-level discrete GPU price point. Would you guys look for alternative options if you needed something? How about cloud gaming? Personally, I'm not sold on it. I'm not there yet. I'd kind of rather have hardware on hands, especially with something like the LG OLED streaming. You can't do streaming on that. I actually had an NVIDIA Shield TV to do in-home streaming, which has even better latency and response than any internet-provided service. And the problem is you get a lot of artifacting during high motion. So you can't really notice it on an LCD, but like on an OLED, because you can see each individual frame perfectly clean, it just looks like a blurry mess when doing game streaming. So it would actually be beneficial to have a worse display to do game streaming, which technically would be cheaper. So maybe that's an option, but for me, it's not an option because I can't go back to LCD. Let's see. Not really. Only I can upgrade it myself. Not really sure where we got there. Not really invested $2K in a gaming PC. But I'm assuming, I'm talking about like if your gaming PC exploded and now to replace it, it costs you $4,000 to replace it. Would you even bother, or would you go a different direction? Would you be interested in Linux gaming with Librem 5 Linux smartphone? Yeah, I mean, Linux smartphones are actually pretty interesting as well. Linux gaming, I like it. It's just the channel doesn't seem all that interested in it. Everybody's just okay with Windows. I suppose once Microsoft screws something up or they're caught like spying on everybody, which we already know that they are, but once they get caught doing it and everybody's like, screw you, Windows, then I think Linux gaming is really going to take off. All right, seem to have landed on my feet in a queue for CPU, $350 plus. Okay, so you got your 5800X, early December. Let's see. Last week can spot a 6900 XT OC. Got it in my cart and was delivered next day. Spent more than I wanted. Yeah, you seem to have lucked out catching those guys. Those are very difficult to get. I'll keep my PC, but game on console until GPU prices calm down. All right, Stephen Wilson, thank you for the 2-spot. Glad I listened. Got the OLED BX LO from Scotland. I think you mean hello or hello. Maybe you need to put like an E or an apostrophe or something. But hello, Scotland, man, you guys are just all over the place. I love that. That is just amazing how you guys are just all over the map, man. And I really appreciate you guys and the fact that you guys like the content. I'd go console, OLED for life. Yeah, I mean, I need to make like a t-shirt like OLED Master Race or something. Definitely got to be a thing. Because it's just like Paul's video. Once you go 144 hertz, you can't go back. There's a little caveat. It's kind of like the same thing. Once you go OLED, you're kind of done for. And it's a real shame with this whole graphics card thing because the OLEDs are so good, and you need one of the new GPUs to get the HDMI 2.1. Now, you might be asking, why is that important? Well, you need high refresh rate out of your GPU to use things like Fast Sync or the Enhanced Sync from AMD. So and that's important because even though you have VRR, if you're running 4K native out of your GPU with HDMI 2, and if the frame rate goes above 60, it starts tearing again. So HDMI 2.1 GPUs are really necessary to get the best experience out of the OLEDs. And we're expecting there to actually be Samsung OLEDs, 4K OLEDs, shown at CES. And you're still going to want one of these new GPUs to really make it work, which is crazy. All right, so Luke himself has an ARM laptop. I actually wanted to pick one up just to mess with it. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to anyone I have ever met. Well, I was going to say, it depends on what you're doing with it. Let's see, I wish Linux gaming was better. Linux gaming is pretty much perfect. It's better than Windows gaming. That's for damn sure. You can get, especially for older games. Like me, I don't really like new games. New games kind of suck. It's all corporatized. Pretty much anything past 2015 just isn't for me anymore. There's a few exceptions, but not many. But for older games, like a lot of the glitches and stuff that come up on Windows, it works perfectly on Linux. So if you like older gaming, you're actually better off using Linux than Windows. If you only play new stuff, then yeah, you're better off with Windows. Not interested in older hardware, interested in new hardware. Well, you're not going to be able to buy any of it for probably about 2 years. Well, not at MSRP. That's the caveat. You can buy anything that you want if you're willing to pay 2, 3, 4, 10 times the price. But everything is stupid expensive. Yes, it's possible to fix this. We just need to unite behind one entity and declare that we don't accept it. No, that's not true. No matter if every PC gamer on the planet said boycotted, wouldn't matter because the miners will just get a discount for like 5 minutes. They're going to buy up everything. They'll buy 100 times the amount of GPUs that we will. This is why NVIDIA, AMD, and all the AIBs, they cater to these people because they buy hundreds of GPUs. You buy one. You buy one every 2 or 3 years. They'll buy 100 every week or if not more. So, yeah, it's kind of nuts. In OLED we trust. That's a good one too. I might have to put that one on the t-shirt. AMD.com hasn't had any cards since the 6900 XT launch. Yeah, that's really kind of one of those moments. Really make you go It seems like AMD kind of fed us a line on that one. It's really difficult to say exactly what's going on. I don't work for AMD. I don't know what their supply issues look like. Obviously, a lot more people, a lot of NVIDIA shoppers wanted to switch over to AMD this time. AMD was not ready. Even if they did ramp up, there's no way that they could have made enough cards to satiate the market due to NVIDIA's lack of ability to satiate the market. So, but the fact that they're not coming in on a regular basis, that's a bad sign. Perhaps AMD's wanting to make the third part, or the AIBs, their partners, make them happy by giving them all the supply because they can't keep them in stock either. Also, those guys are making ridiculous prices or selling at ridiculous prices. So AMD is probably like, well, let's make as much money as possible. That to me makes sense because that's just a normal corporate mentality. Hey, we can make more money doing this. Let's just do that. It's not good for us at all, though. Planning on getting an OLED this year. Yeah, I mean, they should show off the new ones. They'll probably call them C11s, I would guess. Maybe CXI, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, they'll come out with new ones and at CES, so you'll be able to see if there's any new features really worth jumping on. Fire AMD, NVIDIA, Intel, it's not working out. Well, I would, if that was an option. See, the problem is unless one of you guys out there has like $20 billion just chilling and you really wanted to like buy up these guys and then start dictating what they do, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have that kind of money. Maybe you guys do. I don't. RTX 3080 coming on in 12/6/21. Yeah. That's actually what my video was kind of about the other day when the leaks of the RTX 4000 series were coming out. You know, I checked out the videos of everybody talking about it and got the, you know, all the information. I just couldn't care. I couldn't care less about that. To me, like many of you guys, the RTX 30 series hasn't really launched yet. We're still in like the beta phase, you know, figuring stuff out. So it's like, why would I care about what's coming out next? Because you're not going to be able to buy that for like 6 months or a year after that launches. So it's like, it's just kind of a shame where we're at with this. That's why I'm saying we need a separate product. We need AMD, Intel, NVIDIA. Somebody needs to come out with a product that will never work for mining. Like, it'll never be cost effective, power efficient, whatever. Enough for them to do it. So an APU to me makes the most sense because they don't need all that CPU horsepower. Realistically, that would probably be enough for most of us. An 8-core, 16-thread. At this point, Zen 3, I would like a Zen 3 one because that's a single CCX. 24 RDNA3 CUs. You know, that's what? That's at least 1080p gaming level in terms of performance. What would you say? Probably GTX 1070-ish level. I think if that was available, the vast majority of the market would be okay with that. Also, that would have the HDMI 2.1, which I just mentioned is important and useful. So I think that that's a huge missed opportunity if AMD doesn't do that. We'll know more. They're going to announce their APUs here in a couple days at CES. But we're really just expecting them to be Zen 3 with Vega still, which is crazy. It looks like the Zen 3 and RDNA2 APUs are coming later this year. I really hope that's not the case. I don't see any actual reason why they would still keep the Vega cores on there. We know RDNA2 works. We know they know how to make APUs with RDNA2 because they sold millions of them in the consoles. So it's like, come on, guys, you know how to do the thing. Just do it. The only other reason why I could see that maybe being a thing is if Sony and Microsoft have some sort of deal where they can't make RDNA2 APUs because Sony and Microsoft actually funded all of the R&D money for that stuff. So there might be something there where they're not allowed to sell them for a while. And they still want to get Zen 3 CPUs into the mobile market, especially with the new GPUs being launched. Yeah, because Ice Lake and Tiger Lake isn't going to be able to keep up with Zen 3. Let's see. I have an i7 3770 and an R9 390. I've craved to upgrade since more than 2 years already. Yeah, I mean, what you got is kind of old, but it still works. But I see no hope. My only hope left is this community. I won't accept the can't do anything about it mentality. Well, unfortunately, there are certain things outside of your control. See, if you think that you can control everything, it's just not the way that it works. Now, we can usually dictate where the market's going to go. The thing that happened with NVIDIA and Hardware Unboxed, perfect example. NVIDIA wanted to push a message on the community, and the community just gave them the finger and told them, you know, where to stick it. So the community does have power and influence. The problem is when it comes to money and purchasing, while true under normal circumstances, if we all, the majority of us, doesn't have to be all. It just has to be enough that it hurts the bottom line and shareholders go, what the hell is happening? Basically what happened with the RTX 2000 series. You guys, most of you said no thank you until the super refresh came out, and then it was better. It wasn't great, but it was better after the super refresh. But still, NVIDIA had to kind of cave because investors were getting kind of antsy about that. They're like, you're not selling as much as you were before. Problem is, during mining time, our money is no good anymore. Doesn't even matter. Our money is worthless at this point because we're not willing to spend enough. Like I started off the stream saying, Paul and I were joking that the RTX 3090 might end up looking like a deal. Because if you start seeing RTX 3070 selling for $1,500 here in a couple of weeks, you're going to feel like an idiot for not buying a 3090, you know? It's like, well, if I got to spend this over here. Now, obviously, if people didn't buy them, they wouldn't get up that high in price. But, I mean, I remember RX 580s, $500, $600, $700. It's not a good time. We just basically have to wait it out is where we're at. So stick with what you got. Lower resolutions, lower settings. Don't play new games. Do whatever it takes. Don't buy anything right now is really kind of where we're at. And it's unfortunate. Navik Shaha, thank you for the 2-spot. Do you think we can see OLEDs with better burn-in? No, I don't think so. I mean, there's really not that big of a burn-in issue anymore. They have enough technology in the displays now to where, like, they do the pixel shifting. So, like, you don't notice it, but it'll actually shift around the pixels, so this way it washes them out. I still wouldn't recommend using an OLED for, like, a 24/7, always-on desktop monitor. That's a bad idea. Just play your games on it and watch movies on it. It's what it's designed to do. And if you do that, you'll never really have an issue. And make sure you turn the thing off, you know, when you're not using it. You're going to go take a shower, turn it off, and you're fine. But for like a 24/7, always on display, OLED's not the technology. We'll just have to wait for micro LED for that. Basically, it's OLED, but different enough where it won't have those issues. So that's truly going to be the next generation display technology is micro LED, not OLED. But if you want that same visual clarity here today, your only option is OLED. I think that they did make like a test micro LED display at last year's CES, but I think they sold it for like $100,000. So I don't think you want to be spending that on display. Use my OLED for everything. I mean, you can. I just don't recommend it. If you're afraid of burn-in, like I wouldn't use it as an always-on desktop. All right, let's see. My X5650. Not really sure. Oh, that's the AGDT CPU, I guess. And RX 580 rig plays everything at almost max settings for 1080p, 75 hertz. FreeSync helps. FreeSync is awesome. Happy with it. Can't remember when AMD second gen CPUs will be cheap when Zen 2 launches. Not really sure where we're going with that. Zen 2 prices I don't think are going to get as cheap as like the Zen Pluses did. Remember when the 2700Xs were down to like 140 or something there for a while after Zen 2 launched? I don't think Zen 2 prices are going to go that low because Zen 3 prices have jumped up higher. So there's more room for them to stay kind of near their MSRPs. And we'll find out here real soon if AMD is going to release something like a 5600 non-X or a 5700X, or basically a cheaper variant that'd be closer to the prices that we were expecting from Zen 3. But then there's also the rumors that they're just going to slot in the APUs in those spots. So, you know, 5700G instead of a 5700X. We'll have to wait and see. I think we're going to know more here in a few days after CES on that one. Could not wait for OLED, and big monitors are expensive, so got a cheap TLC 43-inch 4K for CATIA work. Very impressed for what you get at $400. Yeah, even cheap TVs are pretty good. Like, monitor prices are just stupid. It's almost not even worth buying monitors unless you're getting like 24 inches 1080p, because those you can get really, really cheap. But if you need like high resolution, spending $500-$600 on monitor just isn't that good. Or what you'll do is you'll get a monitor, let's say $300-$400 for like a 1440p 144, but the image quality is just complete shit. I ended up buying one not too long ago, and in motion, it was the worst thing ever. I was trying to play Outer Worlds whenever that came out, and it was just unplayable because the monitor just couldn't display the frames fast enough. With motion blur disabled, it looked like literally there was still Vaseline all over my screen. So, yeah, you just get a much better display out of TVs than you do out of monitors at this point. All right, I got myself a Ryzen 5 3600 and RTX 3060 Ti, so good to go. Yeah, that's pretty solid little setup right there. Personally, I'm going to try to get my hands on an RTX 3060. I wanted to have the 60 class of each generation and do like videos on it, but it's going to be very, very difficult to get my hands on any of this stuff. But I'm going to try. We'll see if we can do that. But yeah, it's one of those, like, I've already accepted that it's not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to get one at this point. And realistically, I probably won't until 2022. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of where I'm mentally at. I'm not expecting to be buying any GPUs for at least a year to year and a half. That's typically how long the mining crazes tend to last. And yeah, so basically we're going to be pushing pause on that stuff. We will literally have RTX 4000 series GPUs before I think you'll be able to buy 3000 GPUs. That's how rough it's going to get. Samsung and LG call those screens micro LED. They call them mini LED. There's a difference. Micro LED is different. Essentially, each pixel will have 3 LEDs. That's why they're micro. They're microscopic in size. But the micron count in the display is actually closer to mini LED. Okay, so you already got it. Yeah, they might be calling it micro LED, but it's not. Yeah, micro LED's not out yet. When it does come out, that's going to be the thing I'll be telling you to buy. So as soon as those come out and they're reasonably priced or reasonable-ish, I'll definitely be recommending those. But if you're like me and you're like, well, I keep my TVs for at least 10, 20 years. I keep my stuff till they die. And I've never had a TV die on me ever, actually. So I'm like, you know, it's worth the big upfront expense, but I get the great experience now. And like I said, I'll get my value out of it. Even if I do buy a bigger one upstairs, I'll just move that one down here. And then if we move it out of here, you know, it'll go into a bedroom. You know, so and then we got the kid. He'll eventually need a TV. So just slide it down, you know, just an upgrade path type of thing. Alrighty. When NVIDIA had their 30 series announcement, I said immediately that this is BS, and you almost called Jensen a savior. Well, he would have been had he been able to put it out there. NVIDIA will always find a way to trick everybody, always. It is in their style. They didn't do anything wrong. NVIDIA actually did everything right this time. First off, they made the 3090 what it needed to be. Absurdly priced, and nobody should ever buy it. For only a few extra percentage points. So it's 10% faster, more than double the price. I've been saying this forever. If they want super stupid high margins and take advantage of stupid people, that's how you do it. You give them very little performance difference for a crap ton more money. NVIDIA's supply issues, that was on them. But like I said, as we're finding out, we actually have had people saying that the mining people have been buying up 3080 since day one. So it's possible that this has been going on longer than we've been talking about it. And there's also been the rumors that NVIDIA was selling directly to miners and stuff like that. So it's really hard to say. We won't know what really happened, what really went wrong until a few years down the road after it's all kind of washed away. But yeah, no, NVIDIA's pricing this generation is perfectly fair. They're the only GPU manufacturer with a $499 and a $399 current generation GPU out there. It's more than we can say for AMD. AMD actually, their prices jumped up way beyond their MSRP. Basically, they pulled the Founders Edition this time around. So when you have two companies that are both awful, this time around, AMD just happens to be worse. So yeah, NVIDIA is your better option this particular time around because $800 for a 6800 XT never made sense to anybody ever, except they're still selling out. So people are obviously willing to pay it. It's ridiculous. AMD going chiplet for GPU, not consumer grade GPU, not anytime soon. Let's see. First Jensen said the 3090 is 2 times the 2080 Ti. I don't remember him ever actually saying that without giving context, which turned out just be ray tracing, not rasterize. Yeah, I don't think anybody ever said anything was twice as fast as 2080 Ti. I think you're just making that one up. What they said was the 3080 was up to 2 times faster than the 2080. Now, I'm thinking you're just misinterpreting that. Since the 3080 and 3090 are almost the same performance, that's an easier claim for them to back up, because I don't think anything's twice as fast as a 2080 Ti in anything. But see, a lot of people go, well, he said 2 times. It's like up to 2 times, which means the best case scenario, which means ignore what we're saying. So a lot of people buy into this stuff. It's like with Geico, you could save up to 15% off your car insurance. That does not mean you're going to save 15%. If you walk in there going, I expect 15%, you're the idiot, not them. They could say up to 10,000 times better if they have one example that they could prove, and it's repeatable, that under these exact conditions that that's technically possible, then yeah, they're allowed to say that. Realistically, when you hear something like that, drop it about 20-25% off of their claims, and you're usually going to be closer to where it actually is. AMD managed to maintain price to performance from last generation by increasing their MSRP. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that. Not really sure how you quantify that one, to be honest. Like, if you're just looking at price to performance, the RTX 3070, I think the 3060 Ti is actually the chart topper now. So, yeah, maybe NVIDIA definitely had to lower their prices. The RTX 20 series was terrible. They pushed way too hard, and they knew it. That's why the Super lineup came out. Which, let's talk about that. The RTX 3080 and 3070 Super rumor or leak or whatever. If they go that route, I actually think that'd be good. I would actually rather have Supers than TIs, because there's only been one Super lineup ever, and basically that was to fix a mistake. So essentially, if we do see a 3070 and 3080 Super, both will have double the VRAM. I wouldn't expect any performance increases. It would be the exact same performance with double the VRAM, and they'll just phase out the 3080 and 3070. That would be my guess. Now, the leak that this came off of was this is just speculation. Somebody's like, hey, there's this SKU and it might be a Super. So there's no hard information on that. But I would rather see a 3080 Super instead of a 3080 Ti. I would rather not get 5% more performance, still give me double the VRAM, but give it to me at that $699 price point. That would be ideal, because that'd be great, because you're getting the extra VRAM basically for free. It's NVIDIA's way of fixing their lineup. It's like, we goofed up on these things, now we have to fix it. Because they're never going to go ahead and, I guess, say that they made a mistake or something. So they'll just come out with something to replace their stuff. You might go to Geico and pay up to 15% more. Well, that's part of it too. You could save up to 15%. Yeah, you could actually pay more. Yeah, it can go the other direction. People just don't think that way. Do you really think the RTX 4000 series will come out this year? Yeah, absolutely they will. It really depends if AMD can hit RDNA3, which has always been scheduled to come out this year. So if NVIDIA does not launch something, Paul and I talk about this on the podcast. Once again, if you're not subscribed, Technomics podcasts come out on Tuesday. Link is in the description below. You can just click on that and then sub over there. But NVIDIA will not allow AMD to take the lead. Jensen will spend however much money he has to make sure that they have the performance crown. They'll make their dies as big as possible. We've seen them do it time and time again. No matter what AMD does, NVIDIA will pay to make sure that they are ahead. Even if they push power way too far, we've seen them do all of the things that they could do. Now, if AMD continues to come out with a new GPU architecture every year, doing what they did with Ryzen against Intel, it's going to make it very difficult on NVIDIA to keep up with that, especially if they're used to the 2-year cadence. You know, every 2 years there's a new GPU. If AMD comes out every year like clockwork and just smashes another 50% performance per watt over the head every single year on NVIDIA, eventually I think AMD will win if they can keep that up long enough. They don't have to do it forever. It's just like eventually Intel fell apart. They just couldn't compete anymore. Because if you remember when Zen came out, then you got the 8700K. You got more cores from Intel for the first time. And then they were able to keep up. And then you got more cores with the 9900K. And then that wasn't really working as well as, you know, with the 8700K because the IPC of Ryzen continued to grow. And then by the time Zen 2 hit, Intel they couldn't do anything. Now they have Zen 3 and they're getting smashed in the face. And that's just one CPU architecture every year. So I think if AMD can keep pace till at least like RDNA 5 or 6 or whatever they want to replace RDNA with. So about 5 or 6 years of every year, 50% performance per watt increases on GPU. That's going to put the hurt on NVIDIA about 2 or 3 years in, just like with Ryzen. NVIDIA is a very nasty company. Yes, that is why they are successful. Unfortunately, success in the corporate world is almost entirely dependent on how nasty you are. Raising prices at the high end means raising prices at the low end as well. Well, you can also say that it caps it at the high end. Like right now, I'm not seeing 6800 selling for over $1,500 because the 3090 has literally put the bottle cap on the top. Imagine if there was no super high-end card. There was no 3090. So you just had the 3080, 3070, and so on. And no 6900 XT either. Let's say both companies just kind of stopped at $700. Then there would literally be no limit on how expensive 3080s and 6800 XTs could go. And yeah, they might be going for $2,000 right now. So you got to look at both sides. You have to look at both sides of the argument. 400-ish is absolute minimum card, which used to be the flagship a few years ago. Well, it was like 15, 20 years ago. You have to remember the 8800 GTX came out in 2006, and that was $649. And that wasn't even the top-end card. There was still the 8800 Ultra, which cost more than that. Clearly, prices can be way lower. Of course they can. It only costs them like $20 to make these things. You know, it costs nothing to make a GPU die. RAM's expensive. Power management's expensive. So you add them all together, then you get like a cost to it. But yeah, no, they don't cost anything to make these. Are you nuts? Yeah, I mean, they could sell 3090s at like, I mean, it's got a lot of RAM, but $500 and they're still making a profit. Let's put it that way. Super refresh probably in the summer. I don't think so, because they're going to need a new lineup by Christmas next year. So I don't think that they have a lot of time for a refresh. If they're going to do it, they got to do it Q1, Q2. Or they don't have a competitor for RDNA3. It's one of the two, and I just don't see them not having a competitor for that. We already know that they're doing 5 nanometer over at Samsung. It just depends on how far along they are there. Moore's Law is dead said RDNA3 has hybrid MCM. Yeah, okay. I don't think so. There's Vizio OLED for 1100 instead of 1300 for the LG. Should I do that? You got to look at the features. Does it have VRR? Does it support FreeSync and G-Sync? And how many HDMI 2.1 ports does it have? Now, remember, the Vizio OLEDs are still LG OLEDs. The panel is the same. Only LG makes the OLEDs for them. So even the Sony ones, they're actually LG. It's just the feature set, and like the LG has a really good AI upscaling, basically like the NVIDIA Shield TV. It basically has that level of chip inside of it. So if you have like a lot of 1080p or 720p content, the AI upscaling is really good. Just using the chip inside the LG OLED. So you might want to see if that matters to you, things like that. So yeah, you check out like rtings.com. Those guys do good work over there. I think the Quadros will be on TSMC. What about you? I don't think so. I think, and Paul and I know I keep referencing that, but Paul and I talked about a lot of this stuff just like a couple hours ago. So it'll be on the Techonomics podcast on Tuesday. But I think NVIDIA really wants to strengthen with Samsung. I think NVIDIA wants to stay away from TSMC for a few reasons. Number one, TSMC is the market leader on manufacturing, which means they're going to command the highest price, but it also means they're going to have the most sought after production. So, if they only have 10,000 wafers available for sale, that's not enough for NVIDIA. NVIDIA really needs a partner that they can kind of grow with as a market leader in the GPU segment. So I think they really want to hunker down and stick with Samsung. They will jump ship, though, if TSMC gets too far ahead of Samsung and if AMD starts pulling ahead. Then NVIDIA may have no choice but to go back to TSMC. But as long as they're competitive and they're still making money, I think they're going to try to stay away from TSMC. Yes, R&D costs factor in. I think you're talking about when I said GPUs don't cost anything. Yeah, well, yeah, but to actually produce the thing costs nothing. So R&D is just some fictitious number. I mean, you could spend $12 on R&D and still sell the things for, $3,000 or $300. Well, I guess you sell the Pro cards for $3,000. So R&D is all dependent on how much the company spends on that. So that's completely dependent on NVIDIA, AMD. R&D cost is not like some fixed, it's going to cost at least this much. Like I said, if NVIDIA wanted to and they're like, we got $12 budget and I want a new GPU, well, somebody will do that, for enough money. So $12 might not be enough, but, you might find some hungry architect out there who's like, I'll do it for 120 grand. Poof, new architecture, done. You just got to find the right guy. NVIDIA makes so much money that, yeah, they piss away a lot of money on R&D, but they get consistent results. And AMD's starting to build themselves up to that point. Intel, this actually hurt Intel because they've been doing that for so long. They've been overpaying on their R&D and they're getting nothing in return. That's what's killing their company. So, yeah, R&D cost, like I said, it factors in overall, but the R&D cost is technically the fault of the company for paying whatever that they paid. It's up to them to figure out what makes the most sense to sell at. But the actual product, the actual die, costs literally nothing. A $100 bill is more than any GPU, CPU, probably more than any GPU and CPU combined has ever cost to produce. It goes to show, given enough time, megacorps will destroy everything. Correct. The problem is, the bigger that these companies get, the harder it is for them to go ahead and have any real competition. Like I just mentioned, AMD, they're doing really good with RDNA, and if they come out with a new one every year, that's really going to put NVIDIA on the hurts. But NVIDIA can just drop an extra $20 billion just this year. If they're like, all right, like we were just talking about with R&D, if they have to catch up, they will buy everything. They will buy everyone. They'll go to AMD employees and go, we'll pay you 12 times or 100 times what AMD is paying you. You're making 100 grand a year, we'll give you $20 million. You come over here. NVIDIA can do whatever they want. And this is the problem with mega corporations. When you have that much power, money basically becomes the power because it becomes influence. And it's just really hard for smaller guys. Luckily, AMD is just crazy lucky that they pulled off what they have. And it's amazing that they're doing as well as they're doing on both fronts. They're doing great work considering. But now they're starting to get up to that point. And this is part of the reason why they need all that margin money, because they need to be able to fight back against that kind of stuff. Now, imagine if you're a smaller company. Let's see. Like Intel. At this point, I'd say Intel compared to AMD and NVIDIA is probably considered small. Yes, their market share is higher and they do have more cash. But their market mindset out there is really bad right now. So, for example, they want to come out with discrete graphics cards. They're almost screwed. And especially if AMD's coming out with a new architecture every year to force NVIDIA to catch up. NVIDIA's going to dump a ton of money. So however far ahead of Intel these guys are now, they're accelerating their distance. So Intel would literally need to come out with something so revolutionary that it would take these, they'd need to be about 12 steps ahead of these guys. I keep using 12. I don't know why, but it's just my number today. But they need to be very far ahead of these guys. So this way, if they accelerate, they're still ahead, and then they'll need to ramp up. and keep the lead. So it's almost impossible for a company to do that anymore against companies that literally can spend, what, 10 billion, 20 billion, 100 billion, whatever. You know, NVIDIA can just borrow money against its valuation, and I think they're over $1 trillion now. So, yeah, they just go to like some mega bank. It's like, yeah, I need $1 trillion to do this. And if the bank's like, yeah, that makes sense, they're going to give it to them, and they can buy whatever they need to buy and do whatever they need to do. AMD is also lucky to have the talent. Yes, absolutely. In the ranks that they did. Yeah, they made all of the right moves at the right time. Like Intel really kind of slowed down, and they just, there was a lot of things that went well for them on that front. So yeah, but at this point in time, honestly, we should just be glad that we have as much competition as we do. This is one of the reasons why I think things are going to get a lot better when we move over to ARM, which is going to happen. I know you guys are like, no, it's going to happen. x86 is on its way out. 5-10 years, you're not going to be using x86 anymore. It's just not power efficient enough. And at the end of the day, power efficiency is what wins, because that means it's more advanced technology. That's how you measure how advanced technology is. So anyways, once that happens, then there will be more competition out there, because you'll have NVIDIA, you got Apple, you got Microsoft getting into it. You'll have Amazon, you have Qualcomm, you have Samsung, you'll have AMD, you'll have Intel. And that's when I think we're going to get into some real competition. But until that happens, I think we're all kind of just stuck with the status quo. I don't think Intel is going to break into the DGPU market anytime soon. Even though I wish that they would, I just don't see it happening. It's really all I got to say about it. I just don't think that they're going to get there. Hey, I bought up Glowflow. Hey, well, there you go, man. There's a lot of money to be made. If you have the billions to go buy up a foundry, and if you have enough to invest and get them up to snuff, trust me, there's a lot of people out there that want a real competitor to TSMC. Just, it'd take a lot of money. Will there be an 8-core offering from AMD at 350 to 400? Budget anytime soon? Maybe. We're going to find out more at CES. Like I said, I don't know if they're going to do a 5700G. That was what one of the rumors were saying, which would be 8-core, 16-thread, but with a Vega graphics on it. And instead of doing like a 5800 or a 5700X. So maybe the problem is if that's the case, I wouldn't say it'd be anytime soon, because those APUs, they're all going to be going to mobile, to the mobile market, because that's where huge amounts of money's made. So eventually there will be, but how quickly, I would not expect it to be very soon at this point. What are your thoughts on the 12 gigabyte 3060? I'd say that's the most ideal GPU to buy this generation at this point in time. Navi 22 might be really good too. I have to see some performance benchmarks on that. But 3060, 12 gigabyte, that's going to be the card to get. I knew it was, like, since Ampere launched. I'm like, and they're going to be doing a 20, a 16, and a 12. So, performance-wise, probably 2080-ish level. So, it's not, like, super fast, but it'll be a pretty decent upgrade if you have, like, a 2060 or a 5700 or a 5600. It'd be pretty good. Problem is, it'll be $350, which I don't mind paying for the extra VRAM, because 12 gigabytes of VRAM, that's going to be pretty good for a long time. So if you can get your hands on one of those for $350 or less, I would say the 3060 is going to be a really good buy. So 3060 Ti is a cabbage. Yeah, I think it's going to end up being a cabbage, yeah, because I actually did a video when that came out. I'm like, well, why would you want to buy this? You got a 12 gigabyte model coming out here soon. It'll be 10% slower. So yeah, it's slower, but you get 50% more VRAM. So, like our buddy, he said he bought a 3060 Ti. I mean, the fact is you're probably not going to be able to get a 3060. So it doesn't really matter. It's more like get whatever you can get. But yes, the 3060 to me is going to be the better deal than the 3060 Ti. But if you already have one, I mean, you're lucky at this point in time anyway. Hell, you could just wait a little bit. You can sell that at a profit. So if you want to buy a 3060, if you can get it at a decent price, do that and then sell your 3060 Ti for probably double what you paid for it. All right, Zen 3 laptops. Yeah, we already talked about that. All right, I'm going to have to shut you down, pal. We get it. Zen 3 laptops. Man, this thing's kind of laggy. Let's do this. Boop. There we go. All right. Renmore still uses CCXs. If it's not monolithic. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's Zen 2. Zen 2 is 4 cores per CCX. So, yeah, it's 2 CCXs, but it's still monolithic. It's not a chiplet design. If you don't jump from 1080p to 4K, there's no point wasting your money. My 2 cents. Yeah, I mean, that's the other way you can go. That's the other reason why I like the LG OLEDs, because it upscales so well. 1080p is just about as good. Like I said, for me, I could see some jaggies if the AA isn't, you know, like super good on the game. So you can see some jaggies on like little stuff like power lines or whatever compared to 4K, which is, you know, obviously much cleaner. But that's about it. Like actual like character models, like first person shooter or something, like I can't see any of that stuff. And then when you're actually playing and moving and stuff, I can't tell the difference. 4K and 1080p, it's visible, but it's definitely not worth the extra cost to go into 4K, in my opinion. AMD is going chiplet on GPU. Yeah, we already mentioned that. I don't think it's going to be in consumer GPUs anytime soon, unfortunately. Almost every day we get RTX 3060 Ti's in stock here in Finland. I mean, like I said, it's not a bad buy. And like I said, with how crazy GPUs are going, if you can get it at or near MSRP, buy them. Like if I were you guys, I would start becoming scalpers. Because if we're going through a mining boom, you can make a lot of money. You spend $400 on one of these, they will be selling for $800 or more here soon. So if you can get them for $400, just flip them. Just flip them, guys. Obviously don't put yourself in hawk. Don't throw them on a credit card. But if you have some extra money sitting in the bank, if you got like 2 or 3 grand just sitting there and you're like, I don't know what to do with this, I don't really need anything, and you know, whatever, you want something to invest in, buy GPUs. Turn a profit. If you stay on 1080p for another 5 years, you'll save so much money. Yeah, well, I mean, you could say that for just about anything. Well, if you only game at 720p, hell, you only need an APU at that point. So, you know, there is like a diminishing return. But for me personally, like visually 1080p, especially like I said, on the OLED, it's very hard for me to see the difference. Even on like a desk on a 24 or 27 inch display, 1080p and 1440p, I can't really tell the difference. For some people, it's going to be more noticeable. You guys might be able to see the fine details a little bit better than I can. I'm good at seeing motion. I'm not so good at seeing fine details. So everybody's different on that front. And encouraging scalping. Nice. Yeah, you're going through a mining boom. Yeah, scalp the shit out of it, guys. It's free money. I mostly play a 2004 game, so I can do 4K no problem. Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, you can do 4K on older games. For example, RX 580, pretty much everything from like the Xbox 360 era, you could pretty much do. I did push the RTX 2060, which will become, like I said, the baseline GPU of this generation, essentially. That could do like Crysis 2 at 4K. I had to change a few details because like some of them didn't change the image quality much, but huge performance gains. But yeah, I mean, we're almost at that point. If you play like pre-2013 games, so like last gen games, mostly on back, just about anything can do that at 4K. Warzone is not built for 1080p. Was it built for? 1366 by 768. Details I noticed at higher res are worth it. Yeah, well, I mean, for some people it will be. For me, it's not. Yeah, 1440p. I really feel bad for you guys because the market pushed you guys on 1440p so hard. That's the most useless resolution that there ever was or ever will be. It's 1080p and 4K. I mean, anything else, it's like 720p. I felt bad for everybody who spent like big money on 720p TVs. It's like, guys, it's 1080p. Spend the extra like $500. Get the 1080p monitor. People didn't do that. And when there's very clear standards that are going to be set, stick to standards. You'll definitely save money that way. All right. Okay, so Zen 2 has 8-core chiplets with 2 CCXs per... Oops. Okay, I guess you were talking about what I was mentioning before. Yeah, they're 4-core CCXs, and then on Renoir, they have 2 CCXs on the monolithic die. Zen 3, one of its biggest things is it's 8 cores per CCX. Zen 4, we're expecting 12 cores per CCX. Athlon 3000G can play Half-Life 2 in 4K. See, there you go. I mean, if you're playing those older games, man, you don't need much. And let's be honest, older games are way better than new games. I hate to break it to you guys. If you're not playing, or if you haven't played them, see, like, I was around during those days, so I played them as time went on. But if you're new to gaming, you started gaming in like let's say 2010, for example, the past 10 years, you need to start going backwards on your gaming, not forwards. Trust me, you'll appreciate it. There's much better stuff back there than there is moving forward. Is 5800X worth it? No. Can spend more than $450 on a CPU? No. It's not worth $450. Worth maybe $350. Mainly for productivity and a bit of light gaming. I mean, unless you need super single-threaded stuff, I'd still wait for Rocket Lake, honestly. If you need really high single-thread, that might actually be better. And if the pricing is right, that's really, that might actually be a pretty good option for you. 120 hertz at 4K isn't really feasible right now. Well, that's why you play at 1080p 120, or you do 4K 60. And that's why I keep saying OLED, because OLED at 60, the motion is just better than 120 or 144 on an LCD anyway. So you don't need high refresh on OLED, which is great. And like I said, I'm the motion guy. That's what gets me. That's the important part to me. What hardware do you think will be released this year by the big three? Well, we're definitely getting Rocket Lake. NVIDIA and AMD will launch next generation GPUs. You'll probably be able... Those will probably launch before you can easily obtain any current series GPU, which is ridiculous. The roadmap is that we're going to get Zen 3 APUs now here at CES with Vega, and then we're going to get Zen 3 and RDNA2 at the end of the year. I'm really hoping that's wrong. I would love to see Zen 3 and RDNA2 now. And with, like I said, if there is a mining boom, which there appears to be, then, excuse me, then APUs are going to become the mainstream option for gaming much quicker. I would rather buy a 1440p 144 hertz 32 than a 4K 60 32 at the same price. Should be buying neither. Should be buying an OLED, and then you get 4K 120, and then you don't have to worry about it. That's why I keep saying, if you're buying a monitor now, it better be under $200. Spend nothing on them, because LCD is junk. Just don't spend money on them. I mean, well, unless you're a professional, you're making money off of it. Like, if you need professional grade stuff and grading, but then you have 4K 60, because that's what all those are. Let's see. I currently have a GTX 1080 Ti, and I'm waiting on GPU prices. GPU to be at least 100% faster than my 1080 Ti. If they're gonna price things high, it's better to wait or to pull the trigger. So basically, you're talking like 3080 level. I'm pretty sure that's close, maybe 3090 or 6800 XT for an upgrade. Those are about 100% faster. They also cost about the same price. Right now, if you're looking at the NVIDIA cards, wait for the higher gigabyte models. Wait for the 20 gig, whether they call it a Super or a Ti or whatever, or maybe they might do both. But on the NVIDIA side, I'd wait for the 20 gig model. if you want to go with AMD, you can go with AMD. But yeah, if you can buy it, if you need a GPU, that's basically how we should phrase this. And you can get it at or near MSRP. Buy it now. Do not wait. And then if you need money in the future, just sell it off. Keep your 1080 Ti because that will be selling for probably as much, if not more, than you paid for it here soon. So you might actually turn a profit on your 1080 Ti that you've had forever, which is really ridiculous. I paid 200 bugs for 144 hertz. Yeah, I mean that's fine. I mean that's pretty cheap. Please, I want the official price of the PlayStation 5. The official price? I mean, it's $399, $499. I mean, I thought everybody was kind of aware of that one. RTX 3080 at MSRP is worth the upgrade over the 1080 Ti. Yeah, I mean, it technically is, but like I said, I would wait for the higher gigabyte models, personally, just because it'll last longer. OLED's good if I got the space for it. Yeah, I mean, that's the tricky part. That's why a 32-inch OLED monitor, that's why I'm interested to see if Samsung's really got one coming out. And that won't be an LG panel. That'll actually be a Samsung panel. So that'd be pretty interesting to see if they have it. Hey, I understand why you say that LCD panels are bad, but Gigabyte has a new panel with an average response. Doesn't matter. It's awful. There is no good LCD. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care how advanced it is. It's not worth money. This is not worth spending cash on anymore. Not for gaming, anyway. For other things, sure. But if gaming is your primary thing, not even worth $1. Do you think that mining will be a thing in 2021? Yes. Yes, it will. Holding back my GTX 1080 for 1080p. Yeah, I would hold on to it. If you can get one of the new cards at or near MSRP, scalp them up. Buy them all. Just do it because you can just flip those for a huge profit. Like I said, RTX 2060s now are $400 plus, $400 or $500. RX 5700 XTs. I looked these up right before we got on here. They're like $500-$600 now. So if you can get anything, get your hands on it and turn a profit. Let's see. Excited to see QD OLED. Hope it gets brighter. Yeah, I mean they're definitely trying to enhance OLED before micro LED gets here. Micro LED is supposed to get like really, really bright, like HDR like 10,000, like ridiculous. But personally, I don't like my screens getting that bright. I don't even like HDR because I don't like how bright it gets. So turn that crap off. Everybody's gonna be different on that one. But yeah, like micro LED will literally be the last display technology that we need because it fixes all the problems that OLED has, which isn't a whole lot, but it basically solves the rest of them. All right, we got Joner Games. Thank you for the 20 spot. Happy 2021. Happy 2021 to you as well. All right, so what you reckon about mini and micro LED monitors when or if they finally come out? Well, like I just mentioned, micro LED, that's going to be the future. That will replace OLED because it has all of the benefits of OLED and none of its weaknesses. And it's actually better at everything. 2025 was the last time frame that I heard about those. So it's one of those, it's like, do you want to play on junk for 5 years? Or, well, back when I got mine, it was 2020. And this is literally how my rationale went. Do I want a bad gaming experience for 5 more years? Or do I want a good gaming experience for 5 more years? That's basically going to be on par with what comes out. Like, it'll be better, but it's not going to be like a huge difference. So that's the reason why I jumped on OLED now. I figured it's not worth, to me, it's worth the money for those 5 years of excellent gameplay. Plus, like I said, the fact that it upscales 1080p, great. It's amazing. Basically, all I need is like a 60 class GPU. Run them at 1080p, 120. Everything's just fine. Let's see. I appreciate the capitalistic enthusiasm and not saying there should be more regulation. No, well, I mean, there's nothing that can be done. I mean, you have let's say they produce 10 million GPUs per year between NVIDIA and AMD, and the market wants 100 million GPUs. There's nothing that can be done about that. They can't produce that much. It's impossible. This is one of the reasons why NVIDIA sticking with Samsung is a good thing, because TSMC is not going to be able to produce anywhere near that much. So having other foundries out there producing GPUs at least gives you some semblance of a chance. All right. Happy New Year's. Yeah, micro LED will probably come before OLED really takes off in the market. OLED is never going to really take off. It's always going to be really expensive. It's going to be a premium tier thing until micro LED. So yeah, OLED is never going to become mainstream. It's never going to be cheap. I would never expect to spend less than $1,000 unless you get like a deal, like on an older model or something. But yeah, but it's worth every penny. For example, if you spend more than $1,000 on your PC, you should spend at least 2 or 3 times as much on your display, because the display is more important than what's in here for gaming. $500 computer and $1,000 display is a better deal than a $1,000 computer on a $500 display. That, I'm telling you guys, don't spend money on this. Buy the LG OLED or an OLED. Like I said, do some homework. I don't know if the Vizio's got all the cool features that the LG has. Might make it worth it. But literally, the LG has all of the cool features built right into it. Let's see. I game on my LG 4K TV. I'm satisfied at 1080p. Yeah, I mean, it's the upscaling is really good. And 4K and 1080p, it scales perfectly 1-to-1. So you take 1 pixel and you just turn it into 4 pixels. It's nice integer scaling. Is worth buying a 2020 Razer Blade, or should it wait for the 3000 series? If you can get a good deal on it. I mean, when it comes to that kind of stuff, because it's kind of an older-ish model, because we know that all the new laptops are going to be announced here in just a few days at CES. That's usually when they announce all of these things. So if you can get like a clearance price or something like that, yeah, I'd say it's probably worth it. But yeah, they're going to be better this year because Zen 3 is going to be pretty good. You know, it's going to be a nice little bump up on the laptop side, so that might be better. AMD purposefully nerfed mining performance in RDNA3. I don't know if they did it on purpose, but yeah. We're definitely going to see the inverse of what we've seen on the other mining stuff. Paul, once again, Paul and I talk about this in the podcast. But yeah, you're going to have the NVIDIA cards. Those are going to be the ones that miners go after first. So kind of like when Polaris cards disappeared immediately, Vega and Polaris. And then NVIDIA cards still kind of remained at normal-ish prices. I mean, they didn't really inflate for a while. That's what I would expect to happen here. The NVIDIA cards are really going to get hammered. The problem is, you know, NVIDIA supplies 80+% of the market with GPUs. AMD was never expecting to have to fill NVIDIA's shoes. So all the people that normally buy an NVIDIA card, they're just not going to be able to get one. So they're going to be buying the AMD cards. And AMD is never going to be able to supply 80+% of the market. They've never expected to do so. They've never allocated enough resources to do so. So this time around, I think it's going to be really just much harder to get any sort of GPU at all. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe with Samsung, maybe they can ramp up production for, you know, NVIDIA cards. But like I said, I don't think it's technically possible to satiate the mining market once it kicks in. Not until the, you know, cryptocurrencies start dropping in price. Then everybody jumps ship. That's how that works. Let's see. What should I get for kind of long-term graphics? 6800 XT or 6900? Well, I would not get the 6900 XT, personally. You're spending a lot of extra money for nothing, really. So if you can get a 6800 XT, I think that'll last this entire console generation. So until the PS6 and Xbox whatever X comes out, whatever they call it, the next box, until then, I think the 6800 XT it'll still be good. What do you think the 3080 Ti will cost? MSRP, I'm expecting about a G spot on that one. I think it'll be $1,000. I miss CRT monitors. Yeah, I guess you could go CRT. CRT's CRTs are really good for gaming. But once again, like detail, it's much worse on detail. That's why OLED is kind of the perfect sort of in between. You can get the better motion plus the high detail of like LCD. And then, like I said, micro LED will fix all of OLED shortcomings and really pretty much be the last display technology I think any of us are really going to care about at that point. Why are NVIDIA cards preferred for mining? They just have much higher hash rates. They just produce more performance per watt, mostly due to the fact that it has higher memory bandwidth. The Infinity Cache, we were all speculating that the Infinity Cache might make mining like really, really good on the AMD cards. It's also the fact that they have so many shader cores. There's a lot of factors to it, but the NVIDIA cards are just better at doing the mining than the AMD cards. It says 386 watching. When are we going to get to 486? Yeah, there we go. I like that one. Tech Kev, I like it. I don't think we're getting to 486 because I'm going to be jumping off of here in about 10 minutes, so we're going to wrap them up. If anybody's got any questions, get them in there now. I'm going to start looking at the bottom of the list, and we will get that knocked out. Let's see. Will they show off DDR5? I don't think so. Not yet. Not for the masses. Server market, yes. 34-inch 1340 or 27-inch 1440 for gaming for around $500. Don't buy any of it. I don't know how many times I got to tell you this. If you're spending more than $200 on an LCD monitor, don't do it. You either spend $1,000 to $1,500 or sub $200. Everything in between, don't buy. Do not buy any of it. You're just wasting your money. Let's see. We got stop ignoring dude. I got you. I got your all caps there. You can just do at the good old gamer. It does make it easier for me to see, but I don't get to all the questions unless you do the super chat. That's the only time I can guarantee I'll get your question. Let's see, 11700K, 8-core 16-thread, price leaks. No, there's no price leaks at this point. Want best 8-core CPU. It's fair. I can wait till March. Not more than that. Any suggestions? Well, I would just wait. But Intel might be aggressive on price. They got pretty aggressive this holiday season. They've pulled back. I'm really disappointed. The prices now are shit again. They were doing really, really good on their pricing there over the holidays. And if they just left it there, I think that they would be doing a lot better. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe they learned. Okay, thank you. So would you say that a OLED 60 hertz is as good as 144 hertz LCD? To me, it's actually better. You get cleaner image from 60 hertz on the OLED than you do on 144. So the way that I explain it is like the first time that you did 144 or 120, I like 120 better. 144, the only reason why that exists was for 3D. But anyways, the first time that you used your mouse, like it was so much cleaner as you move it across your desktop at the higher refresh rate because you could see it much better. OLED, you can see everything like perfectly clean. So it's a much cleaner image even at 60 hertz than you do at 144. And for me, that was the benefit to the higher refresh, was the cleaner motion looking. So yes, if that's what you're talking about in terms of that. Now, technically it is smoother. You do get more frames on higher refresh, but they just blur together and it's difficult for me to see. I like each frame being clean, and it's just a much clearer image. Like if you're playing a shooter and you're moving, you can actually see things instead of getting that like motion blur sort of effect that you get natively on an LCD. Even with, you should check out my OLED video. Linus's thing shows it the best. He broke it down. I kind of stole some of his footage, and with his 3,000 frame per second camera, you can literally see what I'm talking about. Yes, it's less frames, but they're much cleaner. 289, 9900K. Yeah, that was a pretty damn good deal. That was over the holiday season. 10700s were like $270. Intel they were trying to make money this holiday season. If they just keep prices there, I think they'd do okay. Excuse me. Love questions when no one says their use case, resolution, target frame rate, etc. Yeah, I mean, but if you write a book, I'm not gonna lie. If you write like a paragraph on here or something, I'm not really gonna read it. I kind of like the quicker ones, but yes, context is everything. Do you think that someone from the big three will come out on top in the upcoming years, and if who? Nvidia could win it all. If they buy ARM and then everybody's paying them licensing fees, that's the biggest move. I remember when I did that video and it did pretty well, but I'm like, this is the most important thing that's happened in tech, like, ever. Nvidia buying ARM is huge. And like I said, if Microsoft, AMD, Intel, Amazon, Google, Samsung, Qualcomm, all these guys are paying Nvidia licensing fees. They'll basically have an unlimited R&D budget. They could spend $1 trillion a year on R&D. And then their version of ARM, you know, their little ecosystem will just be beyond anything anybody could ever keep up with. All right. Is it a good idea to build a 2021 PC but use old GPU until GPU availability? Yeah, I mean, that's probably going to be fine. Also, once GPUs become really saturated, like I said, if they're all bought up, people really aren't building PCs, that means CPUs and other components are actually going to go down. So I do see 2021 being good for like picking up power supplies, which last year they were very expensive. They're starting to get reasonable again. Maybe cases. Cases never really get too expensive though. But power supplies, RAM is kind of tricky because we're almost done with DDR4. SSDs, those are always good. They'll obviously get faster in the future. But if you're like me and what you do is you just build complete systems with your extra parts and sell them off to other people, having like extra power supplies, extra SSDs, and that kind of stuff on hand, even extra cases, it's always beneficial for me to just have them. So I like to buy them when they're very, very reasonably priced. So for that kind of stuff, yeah, this year's going to be pretty good, I think. Should I spend the money and grab another MSI Trio 2080 for SLI? No, don't do SLI. If you want to do SLI, what you do is you buy a Fermi class GPU or older. And what you do is you do retro gaming on that machine. Like if you just want to mess around with SLI, it better just be for fun and don't put any money into it. But no, if you want to actually like do a thing here today, do not do SLI. Wait for 30 or 40 series. I mean, just hang on to your 2080. It'll last you at least another 2 or 3 years. Let's see. Yeah, the older GPU is generally not so good performance. Yeah, let's see. We got that. Far Cry 3 was a downgrade in graphics and gameplay versus Far Cry 2. I did not really like Far Cry 2 all that much. Graphically, I'd say it was still an upgrade, though. The character models, I remember when Far Cry 3 came out, it was one of the first times that they got eyes right. They're a little extra glossy. It's almost like you used RTX. But remember, like in most games, like people's eyes are just like overly white. They just didn't look quite correct. Far Cry 3 surprised me because they actually like got that right. And I was like, ooh, I don't like instantly know that that's wrong. I don't know. They're both kind of fun. Far Cry 3, more running around. I don't know. Two just didn't really do it for me that much, being in the jungles and stuff. But, I mean, to each their own. I played the crap out of both of them, to be honest with you. I just bought a 1 terabyte SSD, not even PCI X1. It's good for most games to store. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are getting a little overly crazy because of the new consoles having really, really fast SSDs. The main reason why they invested so much in the SSDs is because they cheaped out on RAM. They only have 16 gigs of total RAM. That means it's your VRAM and your system memory. And it's slower than either one. The SSD is, like, way slower. So they're trying to compensate by doing that, which I think is pretty stupid. They should have went with 32 gigs of RAM and then just cheaped out on the SSD, and it wouldn't really be a problem because they'd have enough RAM to deal with it. On PC, you don't have to worry about it. You can have 64 gigs of system RAM and 16 gigs of VRAM. Yeah, you're going to be able to store all of the game data that you need, and it's going to be much faster than any SSD. So, yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about it. You might have some longer load times because it's got to get the information into the RAM, but that's all. Wolfenstein Remake had the best eyes when it came out. I don't know which one you're talking about. Are you talking about like the Wolfenstein, like the 2009 Wolfenstein? Because I don't remember that being graphically impressive at all. I mean, maybe it was. I don't know. I remember I beat it in one sitting, and I don't game for that long. So I remember it was pretty short. All right, let's see. We got, is RDNA3 going to have SSD on the card for, no. No, that's stupid. They would just put more RAM on there if they needed it. There are rumors about that. That's a terrible idea. No, SSDs are too damn slow. RAM is what you want. See, on a PC, you can have 128 gigs of RAM. You can load the entire game into RAM. And RAM's, even cheap, slow DDR in dual channel, is still what? 8 times faster than the fastest SSD on the planet? Yeah. No sense worrying about that. Easy gaming. Hello. All right, now I do have to mute you because you're getting a little crazy there. All righty. So, all right, I think that'll about do it. I'm just going to do one more. Let's see. We got UMI. Thanks for the help. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm glad I was able to get you with the caps, and I'm glad you did the @ See, it makes it so much easier when I see the @ What's best, 8-core, 16-core to buy? Okay, so yeah, that was the question that you asked. Yeah, like I said, I'd wait for Intel, see what Intel does. Because if they have the best IPC and if they're priced reasonably, they're not going to be the best performance per watt, and they're not going to be the most advanced technology overall. But I would say price to performance and overall performance is going to be more important, especially in desktop. Performance per watt's not that big of a deal unless they go crazy. You know, but if it's 125 watt TDP and it actually does what it says on the box, you know, 5.1, maybe 5.2 gigahertz single core, and then all core 4.8. That's really not that bad. That'd be pretty good. And if IPC's, let's say, even just 5% faster than Zen 3, and let's say they do have a $300 8-core, I think that'd be a big win, because then their 8-core is going to be competing against AMD's 6-core. Which one are you going to buy? You're going to buy the 8-core. Let's see. We got, no, I mean, it still has VRAM. I'm talking about RTX IO kind of thing. Yeah, no, they're not going to ever put an SSD on a GPU, though. The RTX IO thing, that will just make streaming data in and out better, faster, allow things to act. Kind of like SAM. It's kind of like SAM just for SSDs. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, though. Really don't. System RAM in a desktop is cheap. Right now, everybody's got at least 16 gigs. Soon that'll be 32. Soon that'll be 64. And these consoles are still only going to have 16 gigs total. So eventually, you might have triple the RAM. You might have triple the VRAM than these consoles have total. So yeah, like your system, you don't need massive amounts or super storage speeds because your system will just load it all into the RAM, and then you're fine. It's not that big of a deal. So yeah, those features, while nice to have, and things that are more efficient, that's always good. I just don't think it's going to matter that much. Not for a desktop. Alrighty, guys. Let's see. I'll answer this last one because I think this is a good one. How's the Core i3 10100K? Well, it's not a 10100K. It's just a 10100. But plays every single game perfectly. And it got it for $99. That's why I'm saying CPUs don't really matter that much for gaming anymore. Set your expectations proper. Get yourself a decent display. That's step one. 60 or 120 hertz, depending on which games I play. Most games are 60. So like Batman, playing Batman Arkham Asylum again, that's perfectly fine at 60 FPS. And as long as, like I said, I have the proper frame rate targets for the proper type of games that I'm playing, it works great. So yeah, you don't even need to spend over $100 on a CPU if gaming is the main purpose of your machine. Like that's all that machine does. For work like this, 8-core, 16-thread, perfectly fine. So yeah, you really need to be making like tons and tons of money to really need anything higher than like a $300 CPU at this point. All right, Mass Effect 2, best game ever. Trilogy thing coming. I don't know. I like the first one better, personally. Gameplay wise, yeah, I agree, it wasn't the best, but I liked Mass Effect 1 better, like story wise. Alrighty, guys, so that'll wrap it up. I can keep going on forever, especially if you guys start bringing up game stuff. Really do appreciate you guys bringing that in here. You know, throwing it off, the whole gaming aspect of the technology. But, yeah. So that's pretty much going to do it here. I am going to do a video about the super thing. I did touch on it in this live stream. If you missed any of the live stream, it will be available over on Patreon. It's free to everybody. You don't have to pay or anything. Just I have to unlist the live stream videos, otherwise it throws off YouTube. So that'll be over there if you guys want to go back and check that out. But we'll be talking about the super stuff in the next video. Then we'll probably be talking about the whatchamacallit, the mining stuff as I get more information in on that. That'll be coming up as well. And then, of course, if you want to hear me and Paul talk about pretty much everything we talked about here today, but you can get his take on it as well. Techonomics podcast coming out Tuesday. It's usually comes out like 1 p.m. my time. So that's like 2 p.m. Eastern. So what's that? 7 GMT, something like that. Sorry, guys. Time zones, I got to like just add as I go. But alrighty, guys, that's really all I have for you here today. Thank you for hanging out, and I will catch you guys in the next video.